I was sitting at my desk when my phone buzzed. It's a text from my boss. Dinner tonight, 8 p.m. That's an order. My stomach dropped. Sure. Was this actually happening? In the 3 years I'd worked there, he'd never crossed this line. But things had changed since that company party last month. What happened next completely changed how I view workplace relationships forever, and the crazy part, it's not what you're thinking at all. I know what you're imagining right now. Another workplace harassment story. Another powerful man abusing his position. But hold up, because what I'm about to tell you flips everything you think you know about office romance upside down. First, let me take you back to how this all started. I joined Marshall Media as a marketing coordinator fresh out of college. The pay was decent, the office had free snacks, and my coworkers were actually cool. My boss, Ryan, was this 30-something guy who everyone respected. Not because he was intimidating, but because he was fair, smart, and treated everyone like equals. We had a strictly professional relationship for years. The occasional team lunch, but nothing more. Then came the annual Christmas party. You know how these office parties go. Everyone's a little more relaxed, a little more honest after a few drinks. I was chatting with the design team when Ryan walked over. He seemed different that night, more nervous than I'd ever seen him. Can we talk for a minute? He asked, gesturing toward the balcony. My heart raced. Was I getting fired? Had I messed up that big client presentation? Outside, the December air was freezing. Ryan looked at me, took a deep breath, and said, I need to tell you something that's been on my mind. Here it comes, I thought. The HR nightmare beginning. My brother's visiting town next week, he continued. He's going through a rough divorce, and I promised I'd set him up with someone amazing to remind him there are still good people out there. Wait, what? You're the most genuine person I know, Ryan said. Would you consider meeting him for dinner? As a favor to me? I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. That wasn't what I expected at all. My boss wasn't hitting on me. He was trying to set me up with his brother. Fast forward to last week. After dodging this setup for months with excuses about being busy, Ryan cornered me after a meeting. Look, I don't usually pull rank, he said, but my brother's still struggling. Just one dinner. That's an order. That's when I got the text. And that's why my stomach dropped. Not because I was being harassed, but because I was being forced into a blind date I'd been avoiding for months. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not just say no? Stand your ground? Here's where it gets complicated. Ryan had just put me up for a promotion. The timing couldn't have been worse. Would refusing this order affect my career? I didn't want to find out. So that night, I got dressed for this dreaded date. Nothing fancy. Jeans, nice top, minimal effort. I showed up at the restaurant 15 minutes late, hoping to send a message, and there he was, Ryan's brother, Mark. Tall like Ryan, but with a more relaxed vibe. He stood up when he saw me, a genuine smile spreading across his face. You must be the colleague who lost a bet with my brother, he joked. And just like that, the tension broke. I laughed and sat down, already feeling less annoyed about the whole situation. So, I said, your brother tells me you're going through a rough time. Mark winced. Did he seriously introduce me as his sad, divorced brother? Great sales pitch. We both laughed again. And then something unexpected happened. We talked. Really talked. For hours. Mark wasn't looking for a rebound. He wasn't even looking to date. He just needed someone outside his usual circle to talk to, someone who didn't look at him with pity or judgment. He told me about his marriage, how they'd grown apart, how they tried to make it work, how eventually they realized they were making each other miserable. It wasn't dramatic or bitter, just sad in that quiet way endings can be. I told him about my career goals, my frustrations with dating apps, my complicated relationship with my own family. Before we knew it, the restaurant was closing. 4 hours had passed in what felt like minutes. As we walked to our cars, Mark turned to me. "I should thank Ryan," he said. "This is the first night in months I haven't felt like a failure." "Definitely don't thank him," I replied. "His ego is big enough already." We exchanged numbers, not romantically, but as friends, because sometimes that's what you need most. The next day at work, Ryan asked how it went with a knowing smile. "It was fine," I said casually. "We had a good conversation." "Just fine," he pressed. That's when I realized Ryan wasn't playing matchmaker because he thought his brother needed a date. He did it because he thought his brother needed a friend, someone who wouldn't treat him differently because of his divorce, and he thought I was that person. Actually, I admitted, we really connected, but not in the way you're thinking. Ryan just nodded. That's all I was hoping for. 2 months have passed since that dinner. Mark and I still meet up weekly, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to walk through the park and talk. We've become genuine friends. There's no romance, no complications, just two people who get each other. As for Ryan, he got me that promotion. Not because I went out with his brother, but because I deserved it, and our professional relationship is stronger now, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. But here's where things get really interesting. Last week, Mark introduced me to his friend David, and the connection was instant. We've been on 3 dates already, and it's going better than any relationship I've had in years, all because my boss ordered me to go on a date I didn't want. So when someone in authority asks something uncomfortable of you, should you always say no? Or are there times when taking a risk leads to unexpected rewards? I thought I knew the answer before all this happened. Now I'm not so sure. Next week, I'm having dinner with both brothers and bringing David. Ryan just texted me saying he has some important news to share. The last time he said that, my whole life changed. What could it be this time? And what would you have done in my situation? The line between professional and personal isn't always as clear as we think. Sometimes crossing it leads to disaster. And sometimes, just sometimes, it leads to exactly where you need to be.